It's Friday, October 17th, and a big severe storm is about to hit the United States. First and foremost, today we have a marginal risk over parts of the southern and central plains. Today, however, it looks like it's going to be a pretty conditional risk here, and there is a chance that we might not really see any severe weather at all. But as for now, of course, we're going to go with what the Storm Prediction Center is saying. There is a 5% chance of some hail. This just means that we could see potentially some winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. Then the hail risk covers the exact same area. We could potentially see some 1 to 1.5 inch hail at the max, but there is a chance that we don't see either of these severe threats at all. But the main thing with this big severe storm, it looks like tomorrow is going to really be the bulk of it. We have a slight risk for the first time in quite a bit. It's been over a month for sure. Then we have a marginal risk, which really spans all the way from the Gulf Coast up into southern Michigan. Now, for this, it looks like right now it's going to be mostly a damaging wind threat. There also looks like there is going to be a pretty substantial threat for some spin up tornadoes along a QoCS line of thunderstorms. Very powerful line, by the way, that we're expecting. Then that hail threat, because it's a linear mode, not really expecting to see anything over 1.5 inches in diameter, but that is also going to be a potential concern as well. But starting today, this is kind of what I was talking about with there's a chance that we might not really see any severe weather at all. Here is our cold front and then also some forcing from our big trough. Not a whole lot of forcing today. That's one of the reasons why we're actually not seeing a lot of storms in much of our models. Of course, there is the potential for a couple of bubble ups along that line. The HRRR is actually predicting that these will be a little bit north of our risk area in parts of Nebraska and Iowa. These would likely be still a somewhat strong line of thunderstorms. Nothing severe though. It's just going to be some gusty winds with these. But in our main risk area, we can see that it's essentially empty. We don't really see a storm that's expected to be maybe rotating until at the latest, kind of far after dark. And then after that, it's not really a storm that's expected to be rotating for a long time. We just see a very messy cluster of thunderstorms, and this is associated with a short wave that's expected to push through the region. It just looks like it might be a little late for us to get anything strong at all. But of course, the Storm Prediction Center still has this area highlighted for a damaging wind threat and a hail threat. So of course, still want to be weather aware, but there is a real chance today that we don't get any severe weather at all in our severe weather risk. Now, switching gears a little and just getting a taste of what we could potentially get tomorrow. This is a very, very big and powerful QoCS line of thunderstorms, maybe a couple of mesoscale convective systems that develop and are embedded in here. This will likely bring a pretty strong threat for some damaging winds. Would not be surprised to see some in excess of 70 to 75 miles an hour at all. And it also looks like we're going to have a really big spin up tornado risk. We can see that our shear vectors are kind of parallel to this line. That definitely is going to make it have a little bit more of a knack for spinning some things up. Then our shear values are really expected to be off the charts currently. Then our hail threat isn't really expected to be that big at all, but this is kind of a taste for what we could see Saturday right now. Definitely something that we're going to want to watch very closely over the day-to-day to kind of see how it evolves and really get a better picture of what we're going to be dealing with as we go into the weekend. And here is what our jet stream is doing today. This really gives us a lot of answers of why we're not really expecting to see a whole lot of storms in our main risk area. The first and foremost thing is that although we do have a little green shaded area indicating some flow and some very weak forcing, it's not really expected to be any more than that. The forcing is going to be really weak because we don't have a whole lot of cape. It's going to be really hard for these storms to kind of bubble up. And we also have some capping out there as well. We're going to take a deeper look into that with our weather soundings in a minute, but also one of the reasons why we're expecting to see some thunderstorms maybe a little bit more north is, of course, we have a bit more forcing up here with our cold front and with our trough. It's definitely going to be why. And then why we get some storms later is because a short wave is expected to push through in the later hours. That's going to be highlighted by this little yellow shaded region here. It just means that we have some stronger flow and some stronger forcing. Still not really being that strong though with the environment. So it looks like we might get some storms later, but nothing is really expected to be over severe proportions today. Although that is definitely still a possibility. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted that. We are going to want to stay on the lookout. I'm not really expecting anything super crazy going on today. But as for tomorrow on Saturday, it looks like that could be a completely different story. We're going to see this really big trough dig and a whole lot of shear loads of forcing. That's kind of why we're expecting to see that explosive nature in a linear mode with that. And it looks like all threats are going to be in play, mostly favoring a damaging wind and spin up tornado threat, though. But this is definitely something that we're going to want to keep an eye at, because this is going to be a really big trough, bringing some really big severe weather. And this is a weather sounding for today, definitely giving a lot of answers why some of the models aren't showing a whole lot of severe activity going on. One of the main things is going to be that we don't really have a atmosphere primed for some lifting storms. We have a pretty stable layer all the way through the first to third kilometer. And then once we get on top of that, we have a really big area of dry air loft that's not really going to support these storms kind of exploding upwards, especially with the weak level of forcing we have today. Then also definitely just a lot of capping going on, specifically in the lowest layer of the atmosphere. We can kind of see it kind of goes the opposite way that we want it to. We want it to kind of slope up like this, and it's kind of inverting itself. Not really the most ideal thing that we'd want to see there. And then our cape values are looking really weak, nothing really over 500. So with this weak amount of forcing, that is going to be one of the main reasons, of course, with that cap as well, why we're not really expecting to see storms bubble up today. Now, if we do see them bubble up and kind of break this cap and really defy this cape, which I'm not really expecting to see at all, we do have some decent downdraft cape, and then this dry air loft would also potentially help for some damaging winds. And then our shear parameters aren't super bad either. We have 34 knots of bulk shear. Maybe some storms might be able to get organized then in the lower levels. Also not that bad either. So is there the potential for maybe a severe storm or two? Yes, however, it looks very, very low at the moment. The past couple of days, we've been seeing things similar to this where the cape hasn't been super high, but the bulk shear has been almost double this, kind of nearing 60 knots, which kind of makes up for that still being a reason why we're seeing severe weather. But today, I don't really think this is going to kind of compensate for our low cape and cap and low amount of forcing. So I genuinely don't really think we're going to see any severe weather today. Still want to stay weather aware, though, if you're in that region highlighted by the SPC. And this is the final thing we're going to look at for tomorrow. This is definitely something indicative of a spin up tornado threat with that line. We have a really big curvature in the lower levels of our hodograph. Our low level shear is going to be nearly off the charts, 40 knots of low level shear and 400 surface helicity. That's kind of nuts for some spin up tornado potential. And also our 3 cape, that's kind of the only thing missing here, is still going to be 72. That's still really solid. And then also in the lowest layer of our atmosphere, it's not looking like our lapse rate is going to be super conducive for this, but I definitely think it's going to be unstable enough to see a couple of spin up tornadoes, maybe even being strong. Then our bulk shear nearing 70 knots. Definitely a couple of organized clusters. And even with that linear mode, because our bulk shear is so high, I wouldn't be surprised to see some hail in that 1.5 inch to maybe even 2-inch realm of things. Other things are that we are going to have some dry air loft, a bit of a inverted V profile as well, 64 dew point, all things that look like they're going to be supportive of some severe weather. Also with our cape being near that 1500 to 2000 range. And then also our downdraft cape, our relative humidity, and then precipitable water definitely going to be conducive for some damaging winds. That looks like that's going to be the main threat. Would not be surprised to see them get up into the realm of 70 and 75 miles an hour for tomorrow on Saturday. This is definitely a system that we're going to want to kind of prepare for and watch really closely. And the last thing we're going to round today off, we're actually going to move away from severe weather in the US, and we're going to take a look in the tropics. Kind of weird that we're still taking a look in the tropics in mid-October, but here we are. We have a new invest, which has kind of just showed up very, very recently. Currently, it's only has a pretty low chance of development, has a 30% chance of development, but it is going in to the Gulf. Whenever storms go into the Gulf, definitely want to maybe take a look, because there is a chance that they could maybe strengthen even this late in the year, and they could pose a potential threat to the US. As for the track right now, there is really no good idea, and it's not really worth guessing right now because we kind of have no idea where this storm is going to go because it's just too far out. But this storm is expected to go into the Gulf. We are going to want to watch it pretty closely. And just a reminder that hurricane season is not officially over until November 1st. So stay weather aware for severe weather in the US. And then I guess we're still staying weather aware for stuff in the tropics as well.